Welcome to Wisdom Journey, the podcast where we explore the path of building an online business from the ground up. Here, I share my wins, struggles, lessons, and experiments so you can learn, adapt, and grow alongside me. I also interview experts in their respective field. Whether you're just starting out or looking for new strategies to scale, this is your space to find inspiration and practical wisdom. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and I'm excited to take you on this journey. Today's guest is Bob Martin. Bob has lived several professional lives. He began as a trial attorney, later became a licensed clinical social worker, and eventually built a practice as a meditation and happiness mentor. Today, he brings all of those perspectives together through his commentary platform called The Flow. He explores politics, society, and the human condition in a way that challenges people to think more deeply. What makes Bob's perspective unique is that he doesn't approach these topics simply as a commentator. He approaches them as someone who has studied power through law, behavior through therapy, and the mind through meditation. In today's conversation, we're going to explore why so much public conversation feels shallow, how people can think more clearly in an age of constant information, and what it actually means to live what Bob calls a wise and happy life. Well, welcome to the Wisdom Journey podcast. Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank
Bob,
you.
you've had a
I'm happy to be
fascinating
here.
journey across several professions. Can you walk us through how you moved from law to social work and eventually into meditation and commentary?
Well, it wasn't a straight path, I'll say that. It was more a few steps forward and a few steps back, a few steps to the left, and then a few steps to the right. So it's been kind of an interesting journey, I'll say that. I got involved in social work in 1999. At that point, I was 49 years old, and I'd been practicing law since 1977, so 70, 87, about 20 years. There was something about practicing law that left me flat. I was going through a very interesting change in my own personal sense of purpose and meaning. I had been practicing law in Miami during the 1970s, which was the time of what we call the cocaine cowboys, where Miami was completely chaotic and it was full of crime and cocaine. And I was a mob lawyer, and so I was hanging out with some really interesting people. And I had thrown myself completely into my work. I was coming home at midnight. I was leaving at 4 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't paying any attention to my family. And so I was seeing a therapist, trying to get my head on straight, and found out that my therapist was actually connected to a 72nd generation Taoist grandmaster from the Shaolin Temple, the place where Kung Fu comes from in China. And I didn't know anything about Taoism or Buddhism or Eastern thinking, but I met this man, this grandmaster, and he was amazing. He was someone who, when you met him, you almost felt like he was looking not into your eyes, but like somewhere behind your eyes, as if he could almost look into your soul. And I wanted what he had. And so I studied underneath him for many years, and that changed my perspective on life. So that was in the 80s. And then I had to move to North Carolina because my mob clients and I came to a disagreement, and it was better that I'd left than stayed there. And when I got here, I just felt I wanted to do something different. So I went back to school in 1999, graduated in 2001 with my master's in social work. And I did some work around addiction. I was an addiction counselor. I was dealing with people who had run afoul of the law because of drugs, and I was working with them for a couple of years. And then, something completely outside my control They changed the whole mental health system in here, and it went into a private system that just wasn't consistent with the way that I wanted to work. So I left that and I went back to law, but I tried to bring my training of social work into law so that when I had a client, instead of just dealing with their legal problem, I looked at them more holistically and tried to figure out, what was it that caused them to keep coming back into the criminal system, and see if we could help them work through that so that at least whatever happened to them this time would be the last time they had to be punished. And so that's how I lawyered for the next 15 years. In the meantime, I studied meditation and became a meditation teacher, and then I retired in 2015, which is almost 10 years ago now. But they hired me at the university to teach, so now I get to teach both law
Wow.
and meditation on the university
Yeah, I'm
campus.
curious, how did
And
working
for me,
closely
that's
with
just
people's
super cool.
struggles change the way you see society? How did working closely with people's struggles change the way you see society?
Well, people's struggles are not separate and apart from society's struggles. I'll give you an example. Uh, Sometimes we drive around and we see somebody who's begging, and there are like a little devil on one
Yeah.
shoulder and a little angel on the other shoulder, and the angel is saying, help him out, he's hungry, and the devil is saying, but don't give him the money because he might use it for drugs, or he's just scamming you, or he's lazy. And so these two voices are competing inside your head. Now, if you look at politics and society, those exact same two voices are arguing in society. They say our tax money should be used to help the homeless and the poor. But the other one says, no, we don't have enough money for that. They should be working. What we need to spend our money on is more weapons to protect us. And so those same arguments are going on in culture, and they're going on in society, the same one that goes on within the individual. So if you work with the struggles of an individual, you can
Well,
easily see the struggles in
I mean,
society.
looking back now, you gave us a story of how you moved from um, legal profession into clinical social work. Do you see a common thread connecting all these chapters of your life?
Do I see a common thread in those chapters of my life? Yes, yes, I do. I think that when I was a child, um, I was a happy child in some ways, but in some ways I wasn't. I
Take your
really,
time.
that was an interesting question. I'm kind of thinking about it, but so one of the things that's true is that when I was a child, I was
Yeah.
very plump. As matter of fact, my nickname was Bootsy because
Wow.
my legs were so big they looked like boots, and so and I was quite heavy, and so I got bullied a lot, and that was very painful. So I experienced that, while at the same time I had some wonderful mentors and teachers that made me feel good about myself. And so I think at an early age, those two qualities were built into me, the ability to feel like I had something to offer, and at the same time, I understood what pain was. Um, and um, and then I grew up, and for a while, society grabbed a hold of me, and I didn't use those lessons. But eventually, um, when I met Master Nee and I had a chance to revisit both the pain and the pride that I had been given, I think they resurfaced.
Why do you think so many conversations about politics and culture become so polarized? It's people feel like fighting the next person.
Well, it It all comes about because we have two sides of the brain that have very different functions. On the right side, in the right front of both the primitive brain, which is very involved with survival, and connects to the right front prefrontal cortex. There's like a path there. So when we feel threatened, the prefrontal cortex activates, and we feel like we have to take steps to ensure our survival or to push down or eliminate the threat. This is important for our survival. I mean, there's no question that there's a whole set of internal hormonal activations that occur when we feel threatened, and that's important because, if a tiger's in the jungle, you need to be aware of it, and you need to either prepare to fight it or to run or to act like a possum and play dead, or whatever your survival technique is going to be. You have to be ready to do that. But there's another part of our brain that is also very, very important, and that's over on the left side. And that's the part that needs a sense of connection, needs a sense of understanding, of being able to communicate, of being connected, like we're connected now in conversation across the world. Technology has given us this wonderful ability to connect. And then we want to connect to our tribe. We want to connect to our community. We want to connect to our divinity and feel things that are bigger than ourselves. We want awe. We want happiness. We want joy. So there's that part of the brain. And in effect, we are already internalizedly polarized. But the wise person learns to make use of both of these qualities and use one to balance the other. And in politics, it used to be that there were people on the extremes, but there were more people that were in the middle. One of them tended more towards survival. The other tended more towards connection. But they were able to see each other's point of view and then come to compromises about how to go forward, because they both wanted, in the end, they both wanted the same thing. But what has happened, I believe, is that the world is becoming closer to many tipping points of no return with climate change. There are massive amounts of populations that are no longer able to survive in the area that they had become accustomed to, so they need to migrate. Those people who are migrating into other lands are now straining the resources. We are not we are scared, and there are those demagogues, those people in politics, those people that are using the fear of these migrating folks to suggest to the people that there won't be enough for us. There won't be enough for us. And they're instilling this fear, where the truth is that there is enough for us. We just have to work more cooperatively. But once that fear starts to take hold, then the other side starts becoming afraid that those people who are fear-based are going to attack them because they feel that there's not enough to go around, so they have to take mine. And now everybody starts running into their corners, and their survival instincts start to take over.
Wow. Do you think
and
we're
we
living
become
through a period of
unbalanced.
collective confusion or collective anxiety?
We are. No, we're not coming to. We are in a time of collective anxiety. There are voices that suggest that we need to take a breath. Just take a breath and stop for a moment, and reset. I often say that when a computer gets crazy, if you just unplug it for a couple of moments and plug it back in, it resets. And human beings are the same way. When we start to get crazy, we need just to unplug for a minute and reset, and take a break. But unfortunately, life doesn't give us that option unless we create it for ourselves. There used to be a time, think about it, in man's more prehistoric evolutionary times when during the day we would work our butts off. We'd be out there trying to find a wild boar for dinner, or picking berries or onions, and everybody back at the tribe would be washing clothes, and everything was hard. And it took us a lot of energy to get through the day. But then when the night came, we sat around the fire, we relaxed, we looked up at the stars, and we wondered, how things worked. And our creative sides came out. But today it's not like that. We're constantly being threatened with all kinds of tiny little mini granular threats, like deadlines and schedules and getting the kids to school, and do I have enough money to pay the bills this month, and constant mini threats which are affecting us, and most folks are just unaware that their stress levels are high, and that makes them less able to.
Hey, quick break. Before we continue, I'd love for you to join the Wisdom Journey newsletter. Every week, I share exclusive insights, tools, and behind-the-scenes updates to help you stay ahead in your own journey of building an online business. It's simple, practical, and built to help you grow. Sign up today for free at the link in the description. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Listen to another's point of view, less able to be creative in their thinking, and the like.
Your platform, the flow.
That news.
You talk about
say it again.
how much of what we call news is actually just distraction. What do you mean by that?
Well, when people do not feel empowered, when they feel ignored, when they feel forgotten, then a person who wants to take advantage of that has to create a narrative in order to say to them, hey, I'm one of you, I understand you, and follow me, I'll fix everything for you. And if you look at history, if you look at the Nazis, one of their top officials was in charge of propaganda. Let me give an example. In America, we had a terrible time where slavery was legal. We imported folks from Africa, and we sold them as property. Half of the country agreed to this. The other half of the country did not, and we had a civil war. Now, when the Civil War started, the guy who owned a little house and maybe a 1-acre farm, a white man, was called up to become a soldier and go to war to protect slavery, something that he would never have the money to be able to buy an enslaved person. So he really wasn't a participant in this terrible practice, but he was propagandized. He was given a narrative that white folks are better than black folks, that we're smarter than black folks, that those are animals. He was given this narrative that made him believe that he was fighting for something that was of value, and it was the right thing to do. Now, there's no way that the heart of a human being is going to say that owning another human being is correct. Our hearts will not do that. We have to be brainwashed in order to believe that that's true. And so today in America, we have another one of these people, our President Trump, who is talking to the disenfranchised, the extremists, and he is giving them a line of narratives that are not true. And when it appears that somebody is going to be able to expose the untruth, he starts a war in Iran. When someone feels he's going to be revealed for being the person that he is, he creates some chaos to distract people, and then tells people that he's winning when he's not. tells people that he's strong when he isn't. And so these are all distractions that keep the authoritarians, the power brokers, the ones that will do anything to keep their power in power. And we have to be awake and aware and understand the dynamics of what's going on so that we can use our brains and our wisdom and our awareness to seek out what is true and what is good and what is fine.
Yeah, my question
And
is,
that
how
takes
can
effort
ordinary
in
people
these circumstances.
protect their thinking in an age of constant information and opinions?
Well, the first rule
What does
is
that mean?
be aware. You have to, you have to say, I need to be curious. I need to be open to different ideas. I need to be able to have the resilience and the strength to be able to admit that I may have fallen into a narrative that misleaded me. And that takes courage. It takes courage. But ultimately, I guess it's Martin Luther King said, you need to keep your eye on the prize, and you need to say, what is important to me, what my priority is to know the truth. And if I have to agree that there's a belief I had that may not be accurate, I have to be willing to look at that critically and find out what the truth is out there. The accurate facts are available, but we have to have the energy and the desire and the priority to seek them out. It is certainly easier to just sit back and let somebody spoon feed you, but
I'm
it's not
curious,
satisfying.
what habits help still thoughtful instead of reacting to what's happening? Oh, this stuff is on the news, this stuff is there. Right, so that we really understand what's going on and we really understand what we stand for versus people telling us that, oh yeah, you should do this, you should do that. And like, really?
Mm-hmm. Well, I suppose, what we find here in America is that there is one main news channel called Fox News that is completely biased. Now, if somebody only listens to that one source, they will, of course, come up with a set of beliefs that's nowhere near accurate. Makchi, if you have stood on a bridge and somebody else tells you that the bridge does not exist, it would be very hard to it would be very hard to negotiate with them or have a conversation
If you
with them
talk too much, they call
because
you
you have
crazy.
two completely
Like
different
you're
sets of
crazy. There's no
facts.
bridge. You're saying things that they gaslight you.
Yeah. So you have to listen to various sources. And one source will tell you this and tell you a lot of stuff, but if you don't find that it's verifiable, you have to suspect it. Then you listen to another source. Both sources will say the other source is wrong, but one will make sense and be consistent. The other will change all the time. You just take a look at how President Trump described going into war against Iran. First, he said it was for regime change. Then he said it wasn't for regime change. It was to stop them developing a bomb. Then he said it was to get their oil. Then he said that it was because they're bad and terrible people. Every day he has a different reason for going to war. You have to look at that and say, that's not what a person who is real and authentic does.
Well, if people, wow, I'm curious, when people go into these heated political cultural conversations, and they just argue and shouting, like, what are they really searching for when they engage in these conversations? I wouldn't really call it conversation because most of the time it's just one person talking and the other person talking. Nobody's actually listening to each other. But let's call it conversation for the sake of this conversation. What do you think they are searching for when they engage in political or cultural debates? Thank you.
Good question. And I think I do have an answer.
Okay.
Let's take a look at religion. There are many people who find that their religion is not inconsistent with accepted science. They may find that the stories that come from the beginnings of their religion are nice stories, and they may take them metaphorically, but they take a look at science and they say, well, like if you look at Christianity, for example, if you read the Bible literally, the world is 4,000 years old. But if you look at the science, that's not quite possible. So a person who reasonably practices their religion will look at the values and the lessons and the life teachings of the religion and try to live their life according to those values. And most religions teach having an open heart, being compassionate, taking care of those who are less fortunate, welcoming the stranger, all these things. But if you believe in things that are patently impossible, I think somewhere within you, you know that your beliefs don't make sense, but yet you've lived your whole life based on those beliefs. Now, to ask somebody to give those up is difficult, painful, it's hard. And when you build, now getting away from religion, now when you politically, you build a belief system that's based on one lie and another lie and another lie, somewhere within you, you know that it doesn't make sense, but you have bought into it. You have said, I'm part of that tribe. You have bought the beliefs and you've lived your life on it. Now you know that one little break, just like a house of cards, if you take one card out, the whole thing falls. So now you have to protect your belief system that you have lived on and devoted and given money and effort and time and treasure, and you've supported it. Now to turn around and say, wow, I was wrong and I have been harming people with my beliefs, that's a very hard thing to do, very painful thing to do. And so then you have to protect it, and you can't allow for any little card to be moved. So you have to become more and more certain and more of an advocate, trying to prove other people that your beliefs are correct when even you know that they're not. This sets up a lot of pain and conflict within the brain, and you can see why people become very passionate about protecting the shell
become
that
the
they've
identity,
created.
and any attempt to attack that identity is like someone's threatening your life, and you feel the reason to defend yourself, which is not true, because what you believe is different from who you are. You could have one opinion. You're not your opinion. Yeah.
You're so correct. 100%.
Well,
You have become your identity.
I do have a question, and it's a question about a question. What is one question people should start asking themselves more?
Okay.
Why that?
Am I happy?
I was thinking you were going to say something about politics.
Yeah, no. Because you look at people that spend a lot of effort protecting their identity, and they're not happy people. You look at people that are you look at Trump, and you look at all of these minions that he has appointed. None of them are happy. They come before Congress and they testify, and they're angry and they're mean and they are spiteful. They talk about, killing and treason and accusing, and they're just not happy people. So if you're not happy, you need to ask yourself, why am I not happy? And what am I basing my life's beliefs? What am I basing my meaning and the purpose of my life on, such that I am not happy? Because if you're basing your purpose and meaning on things that are life affirming, you're going to be a happy person. If you are a person who welcomes their neighbor, who's a new neighbor runs in the neighborhood, you're the guy that brings the casserole over there and puts it on their doorstep. You're the one that sees somebody in need and you reach out to them. You're the one that feels like you're part of the universe. You're the one that looks up at a sky and is washed with awe. If those are the things that you value, you're going to be a happy person. If you're doing nothing but protecting your identity day in and day out, you ain't going to be happy.
Thank you so
So
much
ask
for that
yourself, am I
recommendation.
happy?
where can listeners, listen to more of conversations of you like this and also learn more about the work you're doing?
Well, everything now that I'm doing is either in my blog on Substack, which is called it's called The Flow, and my podcast, The Flow with Bob Martin. It's on Apple,
Yeah.
Spotify, all the outlets. And I'm happy to get comments. And
Yeah, I'll put the links mentioned in the
yeah, that's where I
description,
am now.
so the listeners can go to the site. Bob, thank you for joining us and sharing your perspective on the Wisdom Journey podcast.
No,
Oh,
thank you,
wow,
thank you
thank you.
for
You're
having me,
welcome.
and thank you for the
I
wonderful questions.
Thanks for tuning into Wisdom Journey. I hope today's episode gave you practical steps and fresh ideas to keep moving forward. If you found value, be sure to subscribe and share this podcast with a fellow creator or entrepreneur who'd love to learn too. And don't forget to sign up for the newsletter and the link in the description for more resources, experiments, and lessons straight to your inbox. Until next time, keep building, keep learning, and keep walking your own wisdom journey. Yeah.